Just listen to this. One burst of the jazzy electro blush beats on Streets of Rage 4's main menu is all it takes to whisk me back to a better time. A time where you could find a whole roast chicken in a telephone box and 2D sprites had yet to eat that chicken and bulk up into the lumbering 3D bruisers of the PlayStation and N64 era. Without putting one fist through Signal, Donovan or Big Ben, I knew I was about to play a game that wanted to respect the past rather than ape it. Because while it's clear developers Garcrush Games, Lizard Cube and Dotemu have great admiration for Sega's previous work, they also recognise Streets of Rage 4 would be on a hiding to nothing if it had a chiptune soundtrack and pixelated aesthetic. This needs to speak to those who've never heard of Blaze Fielding and don't know what a grand upper is. It needs to look and feel like a game released in 2020, not 1994. And as a child of both those worlds, I think they've done a killer job. Gotcha. It brings me great joy to tell you that a modernised Streets of Rage doesn't include skill trees. No effort has been made to flesh out the universe with overlong cutscenes, and characters boast no deeper psychology than I punch, therefore I am. No inventory, no branching paths, and thank Christ they didn't opt for a morality system. You're not meant to feel guilty while decking a room full of Galcias. Do you remember how annoying that blade-wielding dickhead was in the 90s? Well, he's back, and this time he's brought along all of his identical twin brothers. That's just more faces to pummel, right? The only nod to modern sensibility comes in the option to change chicken to salad, so vegetarians and vegans can share in the shame of eating out of bins. Putting a few neat alterations aside for a sec, Streets of Rage is kept beautifully simplistic. You can jump, you can kick, you can punch. The goal is straightforward. Brutalise every NPC you meet, then walk to the next room and do it all over again. It isn't mindless though. Every area involves some strategy. The old pier, for example, is littered with holes. Bad for your health, but great for making enemies go for a swim in the lesser seen oceans of rage. Smashing up barrels and motorbikes drops the aforementioned floor food, but it's up to you to pick the moment to chow down. Too early and you haven't gained as much as you could have. Too late and you're down a life. On top of that, our gang of ragers are so obsessed with dealing damage that they never learned how to block. Silly billies. The only way to dodge an incoming attack is by walking to the background or foreground of a screen, away from the hurt. Anyone can pick up a controller or hammer a keyboard and quickly learn the basics, but nuances are revealed through experimentation. You can't know that a judo throw on one kickboxer can see nearby assailants get caught in the area of impact without just giving it a go. Chances are, a minute or so into Streets of Rage 4, you may not even know you can grapple enemies. It's not like the game's forthcoming. But that's not an issue either. The subtleties are discovered by just messing about. So there's no fear of someone playing the entire game without realising they can flip from a collar and elbow tie-up to a waistlock in the blink of an eye. I appreciate a stripped-back combat system from time to time, one that gives you all the tools you need at the beginning rather than doling out abilities over the course of a few hours is refreshing in this day and age. Now, if the single player was longer than the afternoon of entertainment it offers, it might have become a tad monotonous, but it's perfectly timed. Death isn't infrequent, so it's not like you're going to steamroll through it anyway. If you do find yourself having particular trouble with a boss, you can restart with a few extra lives and a handful more star moves. You'll be penalised at the end when the game shaves a few points off your total, but you'll still progress to the next level. However, scores are at the heart of how much fun you'll squeeze from Streets of Rage 4. Once you're done with the campaign, you can jump back into any of the 12 stages to better climb the rankings, which, I need to get on that actually. Actually, you don't need to see my grades here. No to Colm when you're doing the edit, cut this bit. Because of online leaderboards, there's a greater focus on that end of level score than there has been in previous games. This is only amplified by the new combo counter. We likely wouldn't have action games starring Umbra Witches or Devil Hunters without old school beat 'em ups, so this on-screen prompt that urges you to keep on juggling enemies makes perfect sense. And many are already posting some absolutely absurd stuff with this. Big scores unlock playable characters from the original trilogy, so there's no doubt you'll want to dip in more than once, or twice, or three times. You'll dip in a lot. Despite the warm and fuzzy feeling you get when playing as a pixelated Axel, there's no substitute for the Streets of Rage 4 roster. New additions Cherry and Floyd comfortably stand alongside the updates of series stalwarts Axel, Blaze and Adam. Everyone on the character select screen offers players a brawler that can suit their own playstyle. Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding are your all-rounders. With blows that can batter and blitz attacks that are handy in a pinch, the blonde and the brunette are good starting points for anyone getting to grips with the game. Adam, who hasn't been a playable character since the very first Streets of Rage, returns with fists of fury and devastating front kicks. He's also a little more mobile than Stone or Fielding thanks to his Kazumakiru-like quickstep. Cherry, Adam's daughter, is the ideal choice for those who like speed, seeing as she's the only one that can run about a stage. Her attacks aren't as strong as the others though, it must be said. In contrast to Hunter Jr., the most powerful character on the roster is Floyd. His bionic arms allow him to launch enemies into the abyss, but he's far from quick on his feet. The joy of these characters is that nobody is overpowered. They each have their strengths and weaknesses. You may play Streets of Rage 4 and settle on someone early on, but I find myself going back and forth between all five. Blaze's cartwheel kick is superb to social distance from adversaries, while Cherry's flurry of knees can bruise the very biggest. And though something small, it's terrific that you can now change your chosen character in between stages during the campaign. A minor modification, but a welcome one. A larger change is the risk-reward of specials. In the old games I was hesitant to use Axel's Dragon Smash or Blaze's Cuckoo Show because they depleted your health bar. Same goes here, but you can regain that health back by leathering the baddies around you. If, for example, your Adam Hunter gets hit after emitting a green dragon from his socks and sandals, then that health can't be regained. This encourages you to use your extravagant abilities rather than just settle for your basic punches and kicks. The variation between each character's special moves compels you to experiment. Similarly, the super mega outrageous star moves are tailored to each fighter. Floyd joins his arms together to create a ludicrous laser beam that obliterates anyone in the way, while Axel launches those within close proximity with a blazing uppercut. While you begin each level with a handful of these star moves, you can thankfully get a couple more along the way if you look hard enough. There's no health penalty with these, just magnificent destruction. The choice to move away from pixel art and into hand-drawn characters and backgrounds was inspired. It positions Streets of Rage 4 as a new dawn for the series. If you really want to imagine what this would have looked like on a Sega console, there is a retro filter you can slap on quite easily, but why would you want to? You'd be depriving your eyeballs. Series originals are updated to look even more brilliantly 90s than they did before. Blaze retains her red tube top and miniskirt, but she has gained a leather jacket previously worn by one of the All Saints. Adam's yellow top has been complemented by braces, as well as a few more open buttons to show off the pecs. And Axel has recently discovered the delights of double denim and not shaving. As passé as the attitudinal phase of video games is, it works in Streets of Rage. There are kangaroo bartenders and Orange Cassidy cosplayers walking around topless in the pissing rain. This is a different world to ours. I mean, for starters, they're actually allowed out onto the streets. Looking past those laying it in, the animated backdrops greatly complement the foreground. Outside the walls of a prison, you can see the guards and escapees battle it out in a never-ending game of slaps. The pots and pans of a kitchen bounce at the execution of an earth-shattering back suplex. Some green goop trickles down a radioactive waterfall, whilst the comically proportioned man flings bodies left and right, and a man tucks into his meal in Chinatown, his satisfaction emanating from his left leg, the wonton violence not disturbing his wonton violence. The tact with games that ride on nostalgia is often to emulate what's worked in the past. Streets of Rage 4 certainly uses its predecessors as inspiration, but that's where it starts and ends. It's one of the most gorgeous updates of any series I've ever seen. As As influential as it was on the beat-em-up, the impact Streets of Rage made with its music was remarkable. The adoration for lead composer Yuzo Koshiro's driving techno beats and alien-like phrases has meant that any soundtrack with the drum machine keeping things together at 150 BPM is instantly compared. It's no wonder why Streets of Rage 4 lead composer Olivier de Riviere wanted to draft in Koshiro for a few tunes. He's able to bridge the gap between old and new, and that's what he does. Koshiro is the one who takes point on this new era of Streets of Rage by looking after the music on the character select screen. Yes, I'm going to talk about the music on the character select screen. A beachy crash and energetic keyboard draw you in before the ear-catching synth commands you to sit and listen. Eventually you'll be able to pull yourself out of this trance and begin the game, but there he is again! That thumping rhythm, that clip distortion, that 16th note pattern on the hi-hats. The difference now is that when the track shifts to a sunnier perspective via dominant strings, you hear a modern Streets of Rage from Koshiro, not one confined to the limitations of the Mega Drive. Part of the way through that stage, a notchback crashes into the side of the building and de Riviere comes in with some low-tempo filth that bellows from the speakers. The transition from past to present is complete. His dubstep-influenced tunes fit right into the 90s attitude that exudes from every character and backdrop. His music never feels like it's going over well-trodden ground. It's a rejuvenation of the formula. This is somewhat of a collaborative effort though, as plenty of guests took care of the music for the game's bosses. Ninja Gaiden composer Keiji Yamagishi marries whistling electronica and funky horns with his theme for the big bad at the end of Stage 3. While Streets of Rage 3 co-composer Motohiro Kawashima backs the 8th boss in this game with a dirty toe tapper that would feel right at home in Hotline Miami. This isn't the music you grew up with. This is the deconstruction and reconstruction of that sound. Like the brash art, this soundtrack oozes arrogance. And it's right to. It's a belter. As good as Streets of Rage 4 is on your own, chaining star moves with a friend makes the game sing. Sending one of you into the fight while the other hangs back to watch their declining health, or aiming for maximum coverage by taking opposite sides of the screen, communication is key in co-op brawling. Then, as is always the case, one of you hits the other and all hell breaks loose. You can play online, but local co-op allows the giving of dead arms in retribution. As frustrating as friendly fire can be, a Streets of Rage game wouldn't be complete without squabbles over whether or not a wayward punch was intentional. The playful bickering over who deserves an apple more transports me back to a simpler time with my school pals. While you can let some of that frustration out in the competitive battle mode, it isn't the optimum way to enjoy Streets of Rage 4. Rounds are over so quickly that you barely get a chance to trash talk. You're better off joining forces on the streets and channeling your anger towards the bad guys. They are the real enemy after all. Although, if you're watching this, Mark, know that I still haven't forgiven you for taking that chicken right before we fought the bosses on Streets of Rage 2's jungle level. I was clearly the one who needed it. That was bang out of order. They say you should never go back. And, to be fair, they're often right. Cherished media is a difficult thing to revisit. Change too little, people call it a rehash. Change too much, and fans revolt. Streets of Rage 4 strikes that balance between old and new with expert precision though. Updated visuals and music usher the series into the modern day, while the combat, albeit tinkered, features that classic heavy bare-knuckle boxing you remember. There's more than enough here to convert those who didn't revel in the brawler's greatness over 2 decades ago. And for those of you who have been waiting this for most of your adult life, you've got the sequel you wanted. This is Streets of Rage. If you like this review of Streets of Rage 4, then it would be lovely if you liked this video. Just click on that thumbs up button right there. And if you want more like this, you can subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun for the low price of absolutely nothing. We won't even charge you for ringing the bell. We recommend it actually, because if you do that, then you'll be notified of all future uploads and live streams on this very channel. As always, RPS likes to give you a little prize for making it this far into the video. So here's a picture of the real Orange Cassidy looking all cool and blasé. He'd fit right in on the Streets of Rage. Thanks very much for watching. We hope to see you again real soon.